Figure it out.
Hello, this is Adam Koralik with Figure It Out Productions. The following video is part of our Quick Shoot series.
Hey guys, it's Adam here. First I want to say, I want to thank you guys for watching all these Shenmue videos I've been doing lately. I don't mean to only focus on that. It's just that it's been an insane amount of Shenmue news that has come up, and because it's a subject I'm incredibly passionate about, I really want to share that passion with all of you guys. So to those of you who keep watching, I genuinely want to thank you. To those who don't like Shenmue and they don't understand why I'm doing this, I do apologize if this comes off as spam. So there's a few things I want to address here. First, grab a drink, grab a sandwich, I don't know, grab whatever you gotta do, because this will probably take a little bit of time. I want to address certain individuals. There's been a lot of people who have asked me why I keep insisting that the PlayStation 4 is the only place that Shenmue, or Shenmue HD, Shenmue 3, whatever, why that's the only place it can end up. Now, I thought I had explained this enough. You know, I've done a bunch of videos now where I've said this. Going all the way back to March 2013, I've explained why the PlayStation 4 is the only place that makes sense. It has nothing to do with fanboyism whatsoever. Not even a little. If it did, I'd have a Dreamcast sitting here. But I'm not suggesting it go to the Dreamcast because I'm not fucking crazy. You know, I'm trying to go for practical options. So when it comes to this subject of getting Shenmue out there, and when I say going to the PlayStation 4 is an option, there's three types of people who hear this, and they get the following responses. The first group is the vast majority of you. The people who go, oh, that's okay, that makes sense. I'm with you. I hear you loud and clear. That makes sense. And I love you guys. You guys are the best. The second group is a group that doesn't understand why it can't be multi-plat or why it can't be on their console, whatever. But it's just because they don't know any better, and they're perfectly willing to listen and understand. You know, like, people are like, well, Adam, just explain, why can't it be on the Wii U? I've done that before, but I'm going to do it again. But those people are willing to learn, so they're cool. They just need the facts, which is why we're here talking about it right now. The third group is the one that drives me absolutely nuts. The one that refuses to acknowledge realities. They go like, well, I don't like the PlayStation, so it can't be on PlayStation. I won't support the cause. Because fuck the game, it has to be what I want. My opinion is the only thing that matters. That is the most selfish fucking attitude I've ever heard. That typically is the three groups. And I really am very proud that the vast, vast, vast majority of you are in that first group. Of you get it, you're smart enough to understand, and you're on board. You may want it on other things. Hell, I want it on other things. Shit, I'd love if it was multi-plat. I'm just explaining why that's not possible. I hope you guys understand the difference. I know most of you do. It's just to those two other groups, the ones that don't understand but they are willing to learn, and then that third group that facts bounces off of them like bullets off of Superman. You know, they live in a bubble of just no reality can get in. But I even though I'm kind of ripping on you guys a little, that small subsect, I genuinely am trying to reach out to you here. I'm trying to be as pragmatic and down to earth with you as possible as to why Shenmue, its future, if it has one, is only possible on a Sony console. So please, be open-minded, try, dig deep if you need to, but I will try very carefully to explain this. So on to all that. Actually, there is one other thing that has nothing to do with any of this, but I want to address it very briefly. There was rumors there for a little bit that that Sega posted a Shenmue III registration for a website. That turned out to be a hoax, which is obviously why I never reported on it. And I want to let you guys know, because people are still telling me about this, and it's a hoax. It's not a real thing. Sorry. But it's interesting that happened, and then just everyone went insane thinking, oh my god, it could be real. Just tells you how much interest there really is still. Anyway, getting away from that. Now on to possibility of getting the game out there. First, we must all understand, and I think, again, I'm going to talk to you guys as if you're in that second or third group, even though I fully acknowledge the majority of you seem to totally get this, so please don't think I'm talking down to you. I'm really not. This is for the people who don't get what I'm saying, and the people who refuse to even try to get what I'm saying. But like I said, majority of you completely get it. So please don't assume I'm being condescending. I'm really not. That's not my intention. So okay, to make Shenmue, we must all understand Sega, who is not a console manufacturer anymore, even though they were my favorite. They own the rights to Shenmue. They choose, at the end of the day, what will happen with Shenmue. It is my staunch belief that they will never do anything with it. They've had 14 years since Shenmue II came out on the Dreamcast, not the Xbox, the Dreamcast, to do something. They've done nothing. Now, there's a lot of reasons for this that I will go into later. I hope we can all agree and fully understand that if Sega has no intention of doing anything with it, that you need third-party support. Okay. Now, Sega is the only company involved in this process of making Shenmue that would have any interest on putting it on multiple platforms. This is an argument I get a lot. People say, like, well, if they make it, they have the best chance of making money if they put it on everything. Which sounds fine on the surface. The problem with that, as I said, it's been proven at this point in time, Sega will not make Shenmue on their own. Won't happen. Okay? I love Shenmue. I love Sega, at least the older version. They will never make Shenmue on their own. Will not happen. Which means you will never see a version that ends up on the Xbox, the Wii U, the PlayStation, the PC, everywhere. You won't see that. If, and I will completely grant this, if Sega was going to make it themselves, which is a massive if, because they won't, then hell yeah, put it everywhere. Put it on every console under the sun that they're willing to develop for, including PCs. But they're not. That is an established fact at this point. So you need to get that out of there. You need to push away all sense of fanboyism. Please, I'm begging you, not just for video games, but for life. I mean, just, I'm trying to, mostly it's people who are kids who have this inability to separate their personal preference from facts. And again, I don't mean to demean you, but it's just the truth. Like, I understand, I was a kid too. You know, growing up, it was all Sega, and fuck Nintendo, you know, like, I still had their Nintendo stuff, but it was always Sega first. But you grow up, and you understand that that doesn't, it's stupid. It's stupid to have fanboyism for anything, because you don't win. You don't get anything out of it. You just don't. What you want as a gamer is the best gaming experience, and if anyone is offering you a good one, then they should be rewarded for that. So just try to understand that, because not only does it apply to gaming, but, you know, just when you get outside that in life, you know, you may be a smart person, but you'll be perceived as an idiot if you can't use facts in your daily life and you just have bias towards everything. And this is why politics is all sorts of screwed up all over the world, because people can't take facts in. They just use their bias without registering new information. So I'm trying to do you guys a favor, just as an old fucking dude, because I'm sure I'm older than a lot of you. Even though I'm only 26, I'm sure I'm older than a lot of you. I'm trying to do you guys a favor. It's just better to be able to think outside the box and get new ideas in and just, you know, I don't know how else to put that. Just be open to new concepts. So with that in mind, you have to separate the idea that the Wii U is your console of choice, the Xbox One, the 360, whatever it is, you have to just push that shit away. Please, at least for the purposes of this video, just hear me out. So let's continue onward here with the possibility of Shenmue getting made. Now, what we're going to do, since now that we accept, I hope, that you understand that because Sega will not make the game themselves, and they own the game, that someone else has to finance it. Can we agree on that? Can we agree that if Sega will not pay the bills on their own IP, what they need is someone else to come in, give them cash to do that job, and then release the game? Microsoft, Nintendo, and Sony will not group together to do that to get the game out. So don't throw any bullshit out like that. And we'll talk about PCs later. I realize that PCs are a different animal, but we will talk about that. But the same basic idea applies. As far as I know, PCs don't have any sort of backer. Nobody owns the PC. Everybody just kind of connects Steam with the PC. Yes? I'm not a PC gamer. I got nothing against PC gaming. It's just not what I do. But as far as I know, Steam doesn't bankroll exclusive titles. There's plenty of exclusive titles that exist through Steam. That is true. But I don't think, I could be wrong, but I don't think that Steam bankrolls anything. I think Steam's just a delivery service. If I'm wrong, I'm open to hearing that. But that's what that has been my understanding. And I don't think they would bankroll such an expensive project either. So, moving on. We will talk again about that though. Okay. So let's start eliminating consoles. And the ones that we can agree will not work. Can we all agree that everything... I know I keep saying that, but I'm trying to let's just be unified here. We all want basically the same thing, I hope. We all want the next installment of Shenmue. So we need to stop fighting amongst ourselves. There needs to be... I'm calling for unity here. That's the only way we're ever going to get this. If we squabble amongst ourselves over what we want it on, we'll never get it. We need to go with the most pragmatic and logical path, which points to this machine. And after all this babbling, I will finally get to why that makes sense. So, I hope we can agree that every console from the 6th generation and older is eliminated. Yes? Can we all agree that the GameCube, the original Xbox, the PlayStation 2, the Dreamcast, and everything before it, the N64, the Saturn, the fucking Jaguar, everything, we can agree those are not options, right? If anybody is seriously arguing that, I'm going to be baffled. And the two small arguments in there is people will say, well, you know, the Dreamcast still gets independent titles. Preaching to the choir. I buy them all, I do videos on them, I fucking love the Dreamcast, no one would debate that with me. But the Dreamcast is not even close to a viable place to put Shenmue III. It's just not financially or marketably possible. So please, that one's out. As much as I love it, that is my first choice as a if you want to call me a fanboy, that would be my first choice. In a fucking dream world, it'd be on the Dreamcast. But I don't insert that here, because that's ridiculous. The other one that people might argue is the PlayStation 2. Well, Adam, you know, there's still some fucking sports games that come out for the PlayStation 2, where, I'll be perfectly honest, that's astonishing to me that that still happens. And credit to them for that, because that's impressive. But if you think that the PlayStation 2 is marketable now, in 2013, as like the exclusive console where Shenmue 3 would go, then you gotta screw loose. It's just ridiculous. Even if my whole theory of Sony backing it were to happen, there still would not be a PS2 version, because that's just crazy. It's just too old of hardware to make any sense. Yeah, but... So I hope we can agree that those two are eliminated, as well as everything in that generation and before. But if anybody's got a solid argument for why the Sega CD could get it, I would love to hear that, because I would also love to know what kind of fucking weed you're smoking, because that's crazy talk. Nothing against the Sega CD, I'm just being real. Okay, so that brings us to the 7th generation. The Wii, the Xbox 360, and the PlayStation 3. Then starting with the Xbox 360, because that came out in 2005, it came out first. I first want to go after the Wii on this one. I hope we can all agree that the original Wii, not the Wii U, the Wii that was released in 2006, I hope we can agree that that console is also not practical. It is not practical because obviously it has its successor out, the Wii U, which has been out for over a year. The original Wii is no longer supported by Nintendo as far as first-party titles go. There are no more Mario or Zelda or Kirby or anything games. I think, actually, the Kirby Collection, was it the 20th anniversary, whatever it was? I think that was the last first-party title that Nintendo put out. Which means you just have a handful of very mediocre, if not poor, subpar Wii titles coming out. So, I hope we can all agree that just given the console's age and the fact that Nintendo no longer really supports it, that console is eliminated. Yes, they did just release the Wii Mini in the US. And yes, I know that happened. I did a video on it a long time ago when it was a Canadian exclusive, and people give me shit because it's an American exclusive now. It's like, sorry, I can't edit the past. But yes, I know they released that console, but that does not mean it's a viable marketing option. Especially since they are now cutting server features one after another. I just hope you guys understand why the Wii is no longer practical for that kind of thing. The Wii might have been practical a few years ago, but that door is closed. It's over. It's not going to be on the Wii. So then we get to the Xbox 360. Now, as my personal preference in the 7th generation would have been the Xbox 360. Wouldn't have been the most viable option, but it would have been my personal preference. So I want to make sure you understand that. The Xbox 360 is eliminated for one very simple reason. The Xbox is dead in the water in Japan. The original one was, the Xbox 360 was, and the Xbox One will be dead there. And shit, I don't even think the Xbox One is getting launched in Japan, at least anytime soon. We'll talk about that in a little bit. Shenmue is a very Japanese game. It's made in-house by Japanese developers, owned by a Japanese company. Yu Suzuki is Japanese. It's a very... I'm not Japanese, obviously, but I do understand the pride of that culture. It's a very nationalistic culture. They're not going to bankroll and want to make that for an American console, especially one that does piss poor in their country. So you need to eliminate that. We tend to, in the West, meaning the US, Canada, European countries, we tend to think, we kind of ignore that little bit of information. We tend to think, like, well, the Xbox is successful here, it's my favorite, therefore it must come there. You have to observe the realities of who's making the game, though. And that company and that game are not viable there. People then bring up, well, Shenmue II was on the Xbox. Yes, it was. Do you know why? Because Peter Moore, the guy who ran Sega at the end of the Dreamcast's lifespan, he basically at the time claimed, well, we're doing the third-party thing now, we're not going to be making hardware anymore, and Shenmue II, which had been released in Japan and Europe at that point, for the Dreamcast, he had decided, well, we don't need it here because, again, we're doing third-party now, so we're going to give it to the Xbox and just kind of kick off the Xbox as if he was some great guy. What we later found out, and this was proven, in Chicago, where I live, incidentally, not by me, but it was interesting nonetheless that it happened here, he admitted that the only reason he did that was because he was vying for a job at Microsoft, which he did get. He basically sold out Shenmue to use as a way to enter into Microsoft, because he did leave Sega for this basically the same job over in the Xbox division. And bringing Shenmue over was just a way to secure that deal. And Shenmue 2 did miserable on the Xbox, which I will talk about later. But you have to understand that that's the only reason that happened, was that Peter Moore sold out the game and the company to release it. And interestingly, there is no Shenmue 2 Xbox release in Japan. In fact, the only region that got both versions of Shenmue 2 was Europe. We got the Xbox version, Japan got the Dreamcast version, Europe got both versions. So, good for them. Plus, if you ever want to play Shenmue, don't play the fucking Xbox version. It's crap by comparison. I still love the game. It's still one of the best games ever, but compared to the Dreamcast version, it's shit. I'm not going to go into this. I did a video on this a long time ago about why the Dreamcast version is better. If you're very curious, you can watch that video. So anyway, back on to point. Yeah, so the Xbox is dead in the water in Japan, which is why the Xbox 360 will never have the game. Yes, it has 80 million users worldwide. They're all in the US, Canada, and Europe. There's only like, what, 2 million units sold in Japan? Which I know sounds like a lot on the surface, but it's really not. There's no nationalistic pride in the Xbox in Japan. Like, they just will not get behind it. So you got to stop thinking about it as an option. It's not. And so now we move on to the PlayStation 3 from that generation. Now the PlayStation 3, to me, was actually a very viable option. For the same reasons, I think the PlayStation 4 is a viable option. Problem is, now that the PlayStation 4 is out, and Sony will start to cut back on their support of the PlayStation 3. It is an inevitability, same as the Xbox 360. What they're going to do, you're going to see, I'm betting for this next year, you won't really notice a difference. You're still going to start seeing, the big titles are still going to come out, but there's going to be a few less of them because they start to gear more towards this machine. And probably starting in around 2015, early 2015, maybe even late 2014, probably, actually, it wouldn't surprise me if it was like summer or fall of 2014, they stopped manufacturing PS3s and 360s. That way they can have one more big holiday season where they're just pushing inventory out. And then they'll start disconnecting all their services over 2015. You know, all the online stuff, one by one by one, they'll shut down, is my guess. So to invest in Shenmue III for those two consoles, well, specifically the PS3, is just not going to happen just due to the fact that those consoles are out the door. PlayStation 3 specifically. I don't put it past them that if Sony eventually does secure the rights to make Shenmue 3 or Shenmue HD, that they would at least release Shenmue HD on the PS3 as well as the PS4 and probably the PS Vita. If they're securing those rights and it costs them a shit ton of money, they'd probably put it out on multiple platforms. But I don't think that's where Shenmue 3 would be. I think Shenmue 3 would be a large part of the reason people would want a Sony PlayStation 4. Just because it's like, damn, that's the machine I need. But while I don't know, obviously, about Shenmue HD, I do think that it's possible they would put it out on the PS Vita and the PlayStation 3 just because of the insane amount of, especially PS3, users that exist. But don't count on Shenmue 3 there just because it's out the door. So I hope you guys agree, at least you can understand, that all those consoles are eliminated. So now we get on to the ones that people are really arguing about. The Xbox One. I think, based on my points about the Xbox 360, you understand why the Xbox One is also not viable. The Xbox One is eliminated, again, simply because it is an American console. It's an Xbox, and it's not going to function in Japan. That's really all the argument you need there. Obviously, Microsoft has the financial ability to back Shenmue, but not the interest. And I don't think that Sega would let them do it. Maybe if they paid through the ass, but I just don't see it happening, because Microsoft knows the Xbox doesn't work in Japan. They tried. They really legitimately tried with the original Xbox and the 360, but the Xbox One, as far as I know, doesn't even have a launch date window for that country. So they got the money, but they're not going to do it. It's not going to work. The pieces don't fit. So it's eliminated. Like it or not, it's not an option. So then you get to the Wii U. Now here's the Wii U is an interesting one. Because, okay, people always assume I don't want it on the Wii U because I hate the Wii U. Where you're getting this, I don't know. I really hated the Wii. I think the Wii U is actually really cool. You know, I've got one. I've had it since it came out day of. I think it's a great little console. Sure, its software is not quite there. It needs more games, but damn, does it have some cool exclusives. And I still think, from that standpoint of the console itself, it's actually a very good place for Shenmue. It would make a shit ton of sense. The gamepad would be a perfect spiritual successor to the VMU, but those are my opinions. That's not facts. There's one huge fucking obstacle in the way of getting any type of Shenmue traction on the Wii U. But first, let's talk about other reasons why it might work. It is a Japanese company. Sega and Nintendo have a long-time relationship, like it or hate it. Nintendo has shown their interest in going after Sega for certain exclusives, like Bayonetta 2 is coming there. People keep telling me Yakuza 1 and 2 HD is coming there, although I think that's only coming out in Japan. I don't know if that's coming here. I hope that comes out here. I would totally pick that up. Sonic Lost World came out exclusively for the Wii U. Those are all true things. But, and this is the real problem here, the Wii U is not successful. I like the console. I'm not knocking it. But that's the truth. It is not a financially successful console. They've only sold, what, 3.5 million of them in a year? The PlayStation 4 in a day sold 1 million. The Xbox One in a day sold 1 million. In one day, each of them caught up to almost 1/3 of the entire Wii U fan base. In a day. The biggest problem with that, you're thinking like, well, so what? You know, I have one and I would still like it there. Yeah, that's great. I'd like it there too. The biggest problem with Shenmue, though, historically, was its fucking release. I love the Dreamcast. Absolutely love it. I love the original Xbox. I think that was a great console. The biggest problem with putting Shenmue on either of them was just the amount of people that had them. Now, we'll break down both of those. Shenmue on the Dreamcast was just... At the time when Shenmue came out, there were only like 7 million Dreamcasts in the world. By the time the Dreamcast was done, there was only about 10 of them. 10 million. Not literally 10. And when the game came out, with its budget, which was about $47 million, Sega claims 70, Yu Suzuki claims 47. I'm more inclined to believe him, because I think Sega just said that to make people go like, damn, you spent $70 million, I gotta pick up one of these. I don't think that was true. Not that $47 million is chump change, of course, but I just think that was their way of bolstering how cool this game must be if it's that expensive. When the game came out, given its budget, and given how few Dreamcasts existed, everyone who owned a Dreamcast would have had to buy 2 copies when the game came out. At launch, 2 copies, for Sega to break even on how much money they spent. Please try to wrap your head around that. Fucking duh, it's not going to succeed if that's the math we're dealing with. Now, of course, people ask, like, why did they do that? Well, they were obviously hoping to have a larger install base by the time Shenmue came out. That didn't work. It didn't. But it would have been ridiculous to cancel it. You'd already spent so much damn money. The best you could do at that point was recoup as much as you could and just hope for a miracle. Hope that this game is just so awesome, which it was, that everyone just goes out and buys a console just to get this game. Unfortunately, that part didn't happen. But it wasn't the tremendous failure everybody thinks it was. It did sell over 1 million copies in just North America. You know, the biggest market that was where it did the best, was Shenmue 1, which is another reason I fucking hate Peter Moore, because he didn't bring Shenmue 2 here to the Dreamcast, where it could have done the best. But again, I've talked about that in different videos. So that's why Shenmue 1 didn't do well, was because it was on a system, as much as I love it, was dying and failing and was not going to work. That's why. It's just the reality of it. Shenmue 2, on the other hand, you could argue, well, the Xbox was successful, so fuck you, what are you talking about? Yeah, the Xbox was successful eventually. Shenmue 2 came out on the Xbox in 2002. The Xbox launched in 2001. And until 2004, everyone was going, why is Microsoft making game consoles? What the hell is this? You know what changed in 2004? Halo 2 dropped. Yes, Halo 1 was out there. Yes, some people had it. But that was the game they had it for, if they had it at all. Most people just were like, and didn't really touch the original Xbox until Halo 2 dropped, and they were just like, I need it. Now, why? I don't know. I never really understood the whole Halo obsession, but not knocking it. People seem to love it. But by that time, Shenmue 2 had been out for 2 years. You know, at 3 years if you include the Dreamcast version. And people were just like, whatever. It was in bargain bins. Nobody remembered it. There was no more advertising for it. So, of course, nobody's going to play it en masse. And I will point out something that makes me want to punch Peter Moore even harder, is that Shenmue 2, when it came out on the Dreamcast in Europe, and then they did cancel it over here, us, the ones who really wanted to play it, we were like, what? And we heard it was coming to the Xbox. We're like, I'm not buying another fucking console just for that. I love the Dreamcast. I want to use it on the Dreamcast. That's where the first game is. Why do I have to wait another year? They already got it over in Europe and Japan. So you know what a lot of us did? We just imported it. And in fact, GameStop, of all fucking people, GameStop used to be cool. I swear it's true. They used to be cool. They got really pissed off that happened, and because they had a bunch of pre-orders on the game. So what they did was they just imported a ton of them and were selling them in stores with a free boot disc. And they didn't charge you anything additional. They just charged you the original retail cost. So that was when GameStop was cool. And I want to thank them for that. Not that they suck now, but they were cool at the time. So most people who wanted to play Shenmue 2 already had it for the Dreamcast. And of course, like I said, you put it on a system that was not doing well, and you didn't market it properly. There was so much wrong with the original handling of the game. This is something that people tend to just completely ignore. But all of this is why it will never work on the Wii U. While the game itself might be great, it might be a fucking awesome port, or whatever it ends up being, It won't work there because the system is not successful. Just not enough people have it. They're not going to repeat that mistake. At this point in time, after a year, the Dreamcast had sold more consoles than the Wii U has. They're not going to do that again. They're just not. It's not going to happen. Why would you make that mistake a third time? You have to put it on a console that is successful in every region. Which means we have to look now at the last one standing. Now the PlayStation 4. Obviously this just came out. If this was the PlayStation 3 and this was like 4 years ago, I'd be making the same argument for the PlayStation 3. It's successful in every region. It will be. You know, even though it's not my personal preference. I wouldn't... People are going to say like, oh, it's your favorite console now. It's like, dude, I'm not even sure I put this in my top 40 yet. It literally just came out. I'm just saying that Sony consoles tend to do well in every region. Well, at least the regions that... I don't mean to insult you if you're Australian or you're in a South American country, but I mean countries that are, shall we say, commercially relevant. That's the way they tend to look at it. Again, I'm not trying to knock you, but when it comes to video games, they tend to focus on Japan as a market, the North American market, which is the US and Canada, and then the European market. While the Australian markets and South American markets are obviously very valuable, I don't know why, but they always just write them off. So please don't knock me for that. The point is, the PlayStation brand always tends to do well in those. In Japan, it does well because it's Japanese. You know, here it does well because I guess we don't have that kind of... I don't mean to call it like a bias, but that's true. We don't seem to have that. It's buying an Xbox doesn't make you patriotic. America, it doesn't. And neither does buying a PlayStation make you anti-America. So we don't have that problem. Europe is kind of the same way, especially since they're neither Japanese nor American, and those are the two countries that make game consoles. So no European country seems to have that problem. It's just kind of a Japanese thing. So, yeah. That's why Sony makes sense, because their console will be successful in every region. And it's a Japanese company. And they have the financial backing to do it. On top of all that, lately, they've been very good about claiming that they want to go and have a lot of solid titles. In the second half of the PlayStation 3's life, they made that decision. They started going game-centric around the time that Don Matrick got to Microsoft and started tanking the Xbox division. I hope you guys... I love the Xbox 360. It was my favorite console of that generation, but I don't think there's any denying that their first-party software vanished. You know, you just started seeing a lot of Halo, and you started seeing a lot of Gears of War. I don't remember people going apeshit about Halo 4, or Halo Wars, or Gears of War Judgment. And what else did they do? They just kind of rode the wave. Whereas Sony I'm going to give them credit because they deserve it. They went after games like Last of Us and the Uncharted series and Heavy Rain. They were just willing to risk things. That mentality is what made Shenmue possible in the first place. Just the willingness to take a risk, to try and make a solid game that isn't a goddamn first-person shooter. So their attitude works. Their finances work. Their culture works. And just the ability to sell units. Now, obviously, the PlayStation 4, like I said, it just came out, so it's not a massive success yet. But give it a couple years, and it probably will be. And if that's the case, that's the window. That's the time where Shenmue 3 has its best chance. The HD collection, maybe a year earlier, if at all possible. But that's when that might happen. And the final point I want to address on this is PCs. Because, look, I don't want to demean anyone who plays games on PCs. That's certainly not my intention. I don't play it, but it's not a knock against it. If you love PC gaming, love it. Love your gaming experience. This is not in any way a slight towards you or towards that culture. But people who play PC games, and this is obviously not the vast majority of you, but there's always some who think it's a magical exception to the laws of economics. You know, people will say like, oh, Adam, I totally get it. I'm on board. PlayStation 4 makes all the sense. I'll wait for the PC version. Why do you think that would happen? If Sony was going to pay Sega for the rights to Shenmue, or to pay to have them exclusively make it, what have you, why do you think they would put it on their competition? It doesn't make any sense. If I'm Sony, you're basically asking me, like, you might as well be asking me to pay to make the game to give it to Microsoft, who is my opponent. That doesn't make any sense whatsoever. The PC obviously has no immediate backer, if you will. I mean, you might argue Steam, but that is competition for the PlayStation, like it or not. It's not like they hang out together, you know, like they don't work together. If Steam makes money, it doesn't give money to the Sony PlayStation. It just doesn't. So Sony, if they were to finance the game, is not going to give it to the PlayStation. They just won't. That doesn't make any sense. And people say like, well, yeah, but Sega put stuff up there. Again, Sega's not making it on their own. Sega would have to be giving up the rights or giving permission to Sony for an exclusive deal. So happening on the PC, not going to happen. I'm sorry if you're a PC gamer, but that's just the way it is. It's not going to happen on the PC or anything other than the PlayStation 4. If it even happens on the PlayStation 4, which is a huge if. No one really knows. But the point is, that is the most realistic path if you actually care about getting the game made. So we all need to unify. We need to work together and go towards that goal. Yeah, some of you, you're like, well, I don't have a PlayStation 4. I'm not going to get a PlayStation 4. It's too expensive, etc. Yeah, that's true right now. But I mean, if the game gets made, you can at least, borrow it from a friend. You can go to a friend's house. 10 years from now, you can find one in a Goodwill. Like, the option will exist to you. Whereas if you, just say, like, I'm waiting until they make the fantasy version I want, you're just screwing all of us. So that's it, guys. I hope you understand where I'm coming from. I hope you learned something out of this. And I really want to thank you all for watching. And please, I'll put a link in the description. Please participate in the Shenmue voting poll on Facebook and the Twitter Thunderclap. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you guys all later.